ಹತ್ತು ಆಯ್ತೇನು?
ಹಾಂ ಹೇಳಿ 5 minutes.
ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿಡ್ರಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಜಲ್ದಿ ನಾವು ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನು ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ನಿನ್ನೆ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಮೇಡಮ್. Good morning, students. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
How are all of you? Yes, only 67. What about others? 9 to 10 also you people had a class now? See, only 67 students have joined. What about others? You people are taking it very lightly, but you will suffer, I am telling you. Lack of attendance, and this is considered as your attendance. And 80% attendance is also mandatory for you people above 75, and moreover attendance, you have to get a concept about the topic. Yes or no? We cannot teach each and everything when you come back. Whatever we have covered, we may revise, take revision classes, that's it. Be careful, spread to your friends that you must attend, okay? Yes, so today I am going to start gastrointestinal tract topics, okay? So respiratory I have taken, mechanics of breathing and all those things. I hope you people have revised those things and written notes. You can mail me also if you have written the notes of my previous classes. You can mail me, I will check it and I will give you my comments or how to improve it, I will suggest you. Okay? Better you practice writing also from now only. Okay? Afterwards, you may not be having time. When you come back and join here, it will be very, very busy because all these days we have not covered the practicals, so many things. It will be very hectic for you people. I am telling you. Okay? So, please take care. Okay? And utilize the time in a proper way. Don't waste it. You will not get it back again. Okay, you will repent. So use the time whatever you are having in your hands now only properly. Okay, practice writing, and you can mail to any of the teachers or whoever have taken the topics. You can mail your answers. We'll check and correct it. Okay, now everything is going on online, so you can do anything online. Okay. Now let us go to today's topic. So I am taking today the competency 4.3, that is gastrointestinal tract movements. Okay, I think initial classes have been started. GI tract. Yes. Introduction to GI tract and all those things. Salivary glands are over.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Stomach is over. Gastric juice.
Yes, ma'am.
That is also over.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, then pancreatic juice and all. No, not yet. No?
Yes, ma'am.
That is also over. Okay. I think that means you are at the end of the GI tract also. See how many topics are covering. So you have to take simultaneously. You also should be prepared for all those topics for writing and all those things. Okay. So once again, we will not go in details when you come to the offline. So take care of those things. Practice in home. Okay, in home you are having a very good environment to study, isn't it? Hmm? So utilize these things. Now coming on to the, so you know already, that means already many classes are over on this topic. So the gastrointestinal tract, or it is also called as the enteric system or gastrointestinal system, it begins from mouth and ends up to the anus. Okay, and it has a long tubes with different structure and function. We have one common structure, that is our GI tract is made up of commonly 4 layers. What are those 4 layers? Anyone can tell me? What are the 4 layers of GI tract histologically?
Mucosa,
Huh?
submucosa,
Okay.
uh, muscularis,
Yes.
and subcus.
And cirrus layer. Okay, there are 4 layers from outside to inside. If you go, the outermost cirrus layer. Okay, then the muscular layer. Muscular layer have again the longitudinal muscle layer and the circular muscle layer. Okay, and then if you go inside, again we have the submucous layer, and innermost is the mucosal layer, isn't it? This is the common histology of whole GIT from mouth to the anus. But there are some speciality. Okay, so stomach has some speciality, small intestine has some speciality, duodenum has some special glands and structure. Okay, depending upon its function, they are different. So you must know all those things. Okay, what is different at what level, and you should know the common histological feature also. Okay, so long tube with different structure and functions and accessory. It also has accessory glands, that is the salivary glands, pancreas, liver, gallbladder. They are considered as the accessory glands of gastrointestinal tract or digestive system. Okay. Next, coming on to the, what is digestion? Is the process of breaking down food into a form your body can use it. So digestion means it is the process of breaking whatever you will eat. It has to be broken down into a smaller particle, then only it is absorbed from our body or GI tract. Okay, it is absorbed and utilized in our body, isn't it? We will take plenty of and variety of food, isn't it? We will take carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and food in the form of liquid, solid. Okay, blend what are things we will eat. Okay, but everything has to be broken down into the monomolecules. Okay, so polysaccharide should convert into the monosaccharides. Okay, complex lipids should convert into a simple lipids. Okay, and like that. And polypeptides has to be converted into an amino acids, isn't it? Then only those particles will be absorbed from the GI tract into our blood, and these nutrients are utilized by our body. Okay, so the digestion is a process of breaking down food into a form your body can use. Okay, then phases of digestion include, this is just an introduction. I cannot directly go with the movements now. So I was telling little bit introduction about the GI tract. So phases include ingestion. Ingestion means taking, okay, keeping the food in our mouth and swallowing. Whatever we'll take, that is called as ingestion. Our intake is called as ingestion. Okay, movements. Movements of GI tracts are important for propulsion. So we will swallow from our mouth, but it has to be taken to the stomach, from stomach to the intestine, and intestine to the small intestine to the large intestine. Then after absorbing all the nutrients, okay, then waste product has to be propelled down and it has to be eliminated from our body. For that, movement is required. Okay, so imagine if something is stagnant at stomach, what will happen? Hmm? So the purpose will not be solved. Okay, ingestion is important. Then equally important is movement of what we have taken or ingested, isn't it? Then after movement, it has to be digested properly. Okay, that is, it has to be digested mechanically and chemical digestions. Mechanical digestion, again the teeth will take part. Okay, the grinding movement, chewing movement. Okay, the smaller particles will be made, bigger particles will be made into a smaller particles. Okay, then the movement will cause some mechanical digestion. Okay, the movements in the stomach. Okay, the chemical digestion occurs by the help of juices. There are variety of juices. In that there are enzymes which digest protein, carbohydrates and lipids are present, isn't it? So these movement help in mixing of food with these juices, gastrointestinal juices like gastric juice and pancreatic juice. Mixing of food with the juices also we require movement, and even the absorption also the movement is required, because the nutrient has to expose to the mucosa, isn't it, and to the blood for observing, isn't it? So the continuous movement should be there for proper digestion and absorption, isn't it? And for absorption, so after digestion, that is mechanical and chemical digestion, then finally the absorption takes place. Then afterwards the waste product which is not utilized by our body, and the juices, after their work is over, the enzymes, juices, they will be degraded and they will be eliminated from our body. That is called as egestion. Okay, so these are the phases of digestion, that is ingestion. So I am concentrating in my class today the second phase, that is movements of GI tract. Okay, I think ingestion, mechanical and chemical digestion is almost over for you. Maybe absorption is also over, isn't it? So I am taking today on this class the movements of GI tract. Okay. Coming on to the, that's all. Digestion, as I told you, there are two types, that is chemical digestion and mechanical digestion. So what are the example for mechanical or physical digestion? Chewing, tearing of the bigger particles of food into the smaller particle, grinding movement from our molar teeth, okay, and mash and mixing. These are all the mechanical or physical type of digestion that occurs in our GI tract. Then chemical enzymatic reaction to improve digestion of carbohydrates, proteins and lipids. So we have mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Okay. Now just brief, you know already this. So as you know, it starts from the mouth, then mouth will lead to the pharynx. Pharynx is a common pathway, isn't it? And in respiratory, pharynx will lead to the larynx. In GI tract, pharynx will lead to the esophagus, isn't it? Okay. That time when pharynx, while swallowing, pharynx, whatever is present in the pharynx will enter into the esophagus, and tracheal opening will be closed by the epiglottis, isn't it? Okay. Otherwise, if it is not closed, if some minute particle enters also, we will get an reflexive coughing, isn't it? You might have experienced while eating if you talk or laughing, isn't it? So pharynx is a common passage. So during swallowing, the whatever content are there in the pharynx, that is going to the esophagus. Okay, then esophagus will lead to the stomach. Stomach will lead to small intestine. Small intestine has three parts, that is duodenum, jejunum and ileum, isn't it? And this small intestine again leads to the large intestine. Okay, large intestine again have the ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and last part of the rectum is considered as the anus, isn't it? All those things are constituent components of large intestine, then finally the rectum. So these are the structures of gastrointestinal tract. Now, how they are regulated? Regulation of the GI tract. So, what is the nerve supply? I think these are all things are covered. Covered or not? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
These are all things are covered. Huh?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
it's just refreshing your memory, okay, or revising. So, regulation of GI tract, it is by extrinsic innervation and intrinsic innervation, isn't it? So extrinsic means word itself indicates it's from outside. Okay, so what is it? It is mainly by autonomic nervous system, that is parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. Okay, parasympathetic nerve supply comes from the vagus nerve and the spinal nerves, and the stimulation of parasympathetic nervous system causes increases motility and GI secretion. Okay, this is a very basic thing you cannot afford to forget. Okay, you must remember these things. Okay, so parasympathetic comes from vagus and spinal nerve and stimulates motility and GI secretions, and sympathetic nervous system reduces the stimulation of sympathetic nervous system, reduces peristalsis and secretory activity. Okay, so it is from almost from T6 to L2 the sympathetic nerves will arise, some sympathetic innervation will come. That stimulation of this causes decrease in motility and decrease in the secretory activity, decrease in secretions. Okay, these are some of the diagrams to show you the nerve supply. So center comes from the medulla oblongata, that is dorsal vagus complex, and vagus nerve it supplies up to the large intestine, it supplies. Okay, then the up to 2/3 of the transverse colon vagus will be supplied. After that the pelvic nerve it comes from the sacral spinal cord. Okay, this is the parasympathetic innervation. Okay, and this is a sympathetic innervation. Okay, it has come from the superior cervical ganglion. Okay, thoracolumbar region. Okay, and these are the ganglions which are involved, that is celiac, superior mesenteric and inferior mesenteric. Through this they will supply, parasympathetic supply will come. Okay, so this is about the sympathetic and parasympathetic supply of GI tract, and sympathetic is stimulatory and parasympathetic is inhibitory. You must know these things. Okay, and this is the structure of enteric nervous system. Okay, so enteric nervous system, you have two types of plexus, isn't it? These are the common structure of your GI tract, that is serous layer, muscular layer, here the longitudinal layer of muscles and circular layer of muscle, submucosa and mucosa, isn't it? This is a common structure of our GI tract. Okay, so in between two muscle layers there will be a Meissner's myenteric plexus. Okay, in between the inner circular layer and submucosa you will get an Meissner's plexus. Okay, this diagram is not so proper. you can refer your diagrams. Okay, so but the mesenteric plexus are present between two layers, that is longitudinal and circular muscle fiber of the muscle layer. Okay, and the Mesenter's plexus are present between the inner circular layer and submucous layer. Okay, and okay. So now coming on to the motility, that is my topic proper. And so the motility is nothing but the movements. Okay, it is because of the muscle movement. So our GI tract has some of the skeletal muscles and even the smooth muscles also. Where the skeletal muscles are present, wherever the skeletal muscle are present, we have voluntary control, isn't it? The property of skeletal muscle itself is we have the control on those muscles, isn't it? Okay. Like tongue and pharynx, upper two-thirds of the esophagus and anal region sphincter. We have some amount of skeletal muscle on these parts. Then smooth muscle, they are involuntary in control, isn't it? So they have intrinsic control from enteric or parasympathetic neurons on muscularis mucosa. Okay, that is smooth muscle and muscularis externa, inner circular and outer longitudinal bonds, and extrinsic control from the CNS neurons. Okay, so CNS, central nervous system neurons, stimulate enteric nervous system parasympathetic neurons, control muscle in the enteric nervous system and modified by sympathetic neurons. So these intrinsic nerve supply has control by extrinsic, that is from the medulla oblongata, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Okay, so this intrinsic control that is done by the Mesenter's and mesenteric plexus, as I told you, it has so many interneurons. It has more than 100 million neurons, and it is considered as the little brain. Okay, it is considered as the little brain of our GI tract. Okay, then what is the function? Why we need the intestinal motility? So mixing of foodstuff, digestive secretion and enzymes. So motility we need for mixing of whatever we have eaten with the digestive secretion and enzymes. Facilitate contact of chyme with intestinal mucosa. So the food has to come in contact with the mucosa for absorption. Okay, so first step helps in digestion. Second step helps in the absorption, net propulsion in a arboreal direction. Then it has to be propelled from mouth to the anus. They should not be the opposite. Opposite occur means it's a pathology like vomiting, isn't it? So it should occur from propulsion is an arboreal direction, and whatever wastage remain, it has to be eliminated. Okay, so these are the functions of GI tract. Okay, why we need motility in GI tract. Okay, now coming on to the first movement, that is mastication or chewing. Okay, you all know about these things, isn't it? Mastication of food is the initial stage in the process of digestion. Here, the large pieces of food are reduced for swallowing. So whatever we have kept in mouth, we cannot swallow it, isn't it? It has to be chewed. Okay, and it has to be mixed with the saliva. Okay, saliva also makes swallowing easy. Any dry thing, can you swallow? You cannot swallow, isn't it? It has to be made smooth. Okay, moistured with saliva, then only we can swallow easily, isn't it? When if there is no saliva, then we'll get a dysphagia, difficulty in swallowing, isn't it? So this is the initial stage in the process of digestion. Here the large pieces of food are reduced for swallowing. the food is broken apart and the surface area increased for the efficient action of digestive enzymes and to facilitate solubilization of food substances in the saliva to stimulate taste receptors. Okay, in human, large vertical movement of the lower jaw. So lower jaw we can move more than compared to our upper jaw. Okay, there is more movement, vertical movement of our lower jaw. You can experience it on your own. Okay, but in most species, transverse movement of the mandible and protrusion and retrusion of the tongue occurs. Okay, in most other than humans, most other species transverse movement of mandible will be prominent. Okay. Now it's a voluntary process. So if you want, you can chew. If you don't want, you can't. You can, whenever you want, you can stop it, isn't it? So it's a voluntary process initiated reflexly following presence of food in the mouth. So whenever something, if unknowingly, if you keep something in mouth, with unknowingly you start chewing. Okay, that we know from birth. Okay, so it's a reflex process. Whatever, if something is there in your mouth, we start chewing and even the saliva will start secreting. Okay, without our knowledge also everything will occur. Hence it is also considered as a reflex. So whenever some food is there, receptors in the tongue and oral cavity will be stimulated. They will lead to secretion of saliva and we will start chewing it. Okay, then we will swallow it. Okay, then there are muscles of mastication which help in this process of chewing or mastication. Those are the masseter, temporalis, pterygoid and buccinator. So these are considered as the muscles of mastication. So first three muscles are supplied by fifth mandibular division of trigeminal nerve, whereas buccinator is supplied by which nerve? Anyone? Buccinator is supplied by which nerve? Yes? You people are listening or not? Yes? Huh? Yes, ma'am. It is supplied by which nerve? Hmm? Buccinator is supplied by which nerve? Yes?
Seven cranial
Yes.
nerve.
Yes, seven cranial nerve. Very good. Okay. So the muscles of mastication are masseter, temporalis, pterygoid and buccinator. Except buccinator, all other muscles are supplied by fifth mandibular division of fifth cranial nerve, whereas buccinator is supplied by seventh cranial nerve. So masseter helps in clenching of teeth. Okay. Temporalis helps in chewing. Okay, pterygoid helps in the movement of jaw. Okay, grinding movement it helps. Okay, so all this together lead to the movement of mastication, or all these muscles they will act together. Okay, for the mastication or chewing movement. Okay, next. So these are the muscles of mastication. So this is temporalis as it is attached to the temporal region. Okay, this is the masseter and this is a buccinator. Okay, so orbicularis oris. This is around our mouth. Okay, so all these muscles will help in chewing. These are considered as the muscles of mastication. Okay. Again, the orbicularis oris is supplied by seventh cranial nerve. Okay. Now coming on to the next movement, that is deglutition or swallowing. Okay, deglutition or swallowing. It is again a reflexive process. Okay, we will most of the time we will call deglutition reflex. Okay, so the process of swallowing can be divided into four stages. That is pre-preparatory stage, oral stage, pharyngeal stage and esophageal stage. Okay, pre-preparatory stage merge into the terminal phase of mastication. Okay, so before swallowing, we will not suddenly swallow, isn't it? Yeah, whatever thing we'll take in our mouth, we will chew it. Okay, and when it becomes smooth, okay, then only we will swallow, isn't it? So that is end of mastication stage is called as pre-preparatory stage. Okay, then the oral stage. Oral stage lasts for around 0.5 second. Then pharyngeal stage, that is the second stage of deglutition, is very important. Most of the time this has been asked you in the exam. So what is the pharyngeal or second stage of deglutition? It takes around 0.7 second. And esophageal stage, that is the last stage of deglutition. Okay, so for this stage, for liquids we need 3 seconds, and for solids it needs 5 seconds. Okay, so this is about the phases of deglutition, that is oral stage, pharyngeal stage, esophageal stage. Okay, next coming on to the, so here it has been shown here. So this is oral stage, is also called a buccal stage, and it is voluntary. Again, if I want I can swallow, if I don't want I can't swallow. Okay, I can spit it also. So this is under my control, that is oral phase of swallowing. So in swallowing what happens, the bolus, food particles after chewing mixing with the saliva, it is called as bolus. Okay, so bolus of food is taken into the back of the tongue, and the tongue presses against our hard palate. Okay, by this movement the food enters from the posterior part of our mouth to the pharynx. Okay, this is called as the oral phase. Okay, so here what happens, the bolus of the food after complete chewing and mixing with the saliva, okay, whatever ball is formed, that is called as bolus. Okay, that has taken into the back of the tongue, and by the tongue movement the tongue will press against our hard palate and we will swallow. This stage is called as oral phase of deglutition or swallowing. Okay, next second stage is the pharyngeal stage, and this is involuntary. Once we swallow into the pharynx, then it becomes involuntary. It is not under our control. Now it has to go to the stomach now, isn't it? So pharyngeal stage, and this is involuntary. This is very important phase, because here many openings are there. So this food, whichever is there in the pharynx, okay, it may come back to the mouth. Oral cavity, if the posterior oral cavity is not closed, and it may come into the posterior nails, that is our nose, if our posterior nasal opening are not closed. It may enter into the trachea if trachea is not properly closed, isn't it? That's why it is considered as very important phase of deglutition. So it has to enter into the esophagus. It should not come back to the mouth. It should not come back to the nose. It should not enter into the trachea. Hence, it is called, considered as a very important phase of deglutition. Okay, so what happens when the food enters into the pharynx? Okay, the soft palate will elevate and it closes. Okay, the posterior nares, it closes. Then tongue is pressing our oral cavity. So food, most of the time food cannot come back. And here the epiglottis will close our tracheal opening, and even the respiration will be temporarily stopped during pharyngeal phase. What happens? The centers for respiration and center for deglutition are present side by side in our medulla oblongata. So when the center for deglutition is stimulated, the respiratory center will be inhibited by the neurons. Okay, by the interneurons. Hence, during deglutition, the respiration will be temporarily stopped. Okay, that is again a protective process so that protective reflex, so that the food particles should go into the esophagus, not into the larynx, isn't it? So this is a protective reflex. For that fraction of a second, our breathing will be stopped, respiratory center will be inhibited, so that the food should enter into the esophagus. Okay, so this is the second stage of deglutition. Then comes the third stage, that is esophageal stage. Again, it is an involuntary stage. Okay, what happens here? Once the food enters, but in esophagus we have two sphincters. Okay, sphincters means something like it will be closed. Hmm? Okay, it will be closed. So we have the upper esophageal sphincter and lower esophageal sphincter. Okay, we have upper esophageal sphincter and lower esophageal sphincter. So that will be closed. Whenever food comes, then only those sphincter will be open, and food and upper esophageal sphincter will be open, and the food enters into the esophagus. Okay, once the food enters into the esophagus, it go to the stomach by a movement called peristaltic movement. So what happens? Behind the food, constriction occurs. Because of the constriction of circular muscles of the GI tract, constriction occurs behind, and here the relaxation occurs in front of the food. So wave of constriction followed by the wave of relaxation, that causes the propulsion of food from upper part of the esophagus to the lower part of the esophagus, and finally to the stomach. Okay, so when food comes to the lower part, the lower esophageal sphincter, or it is also called as cardiac sphincter, which is always closed. Okay, in between meals, it also opens, and suddenly the food enters into the stomach. Why the God has given these guards, protections? It is because the whatever is there in the stomach should not come back to the esophagus, isn't it? And whatever, once the food enters into the esophagus, it should not come in a reverse direction, enters into the pharynx or larynx. It should not come back. That is the reason of presence of this esophageal sphincter. You understood these three phases of deglutition? So one is the oral phase or buccal phase, which is voluntary phase of deglutition. Then pharyngeal or involuntary phase, which is very important phase of deglutition. Then the esophageal phase. So what are the sensory pathway or ingoing pathway for these reflexes? So for oral phase, the sensory impulses comes from 5th, 9th and 10th cranial nerve. For pharyngeal phase, it is from the 10th cranial nerve. For esophageal phase is also from the vagus. Okay, and what are the outgoing pathways? Motor supply for this reflex. It is for oral phase, it is from the cranial nerve 9, 10 and 12. That is glossopharyngeal, vagus and hypoglossal, because tongue also has to act, isn't it? Then for the pharyngeal phase, again it is 9, 10 and 12, and for esophageal phase it is only the 10. That is the vagus nerve. This is the motor supply for this deglutition or swallowing reflex. I hope it is clear to you. So one more diagram, it is shown here. Okay, so this is the bolus of the food. Okay, peristaltic wave. So the movement how it is going, food is coming. Okay, so finally it enters. So here the lower esophageal sphincter will be always closed. Whenever food comes, it opens. Once the food enters into the stomach, again it will close. Okay, whole esophagus also will be approximated like this. Okay, in between the food, esophagus is around 25 centimeter, isn't it? Its function is only to propel the food. It does not have any digestive function. Whatever has been swallowed from the pharynx, oral cavity, it has to be go to the stomach. So the function of our esophagus is only the propulsion of or movement of food. Okay. And what is the movement that occurs in esophagus? That is peristaltic movement. Okay. Next, again the one more diagram to show the all the stages of deglutition. Okay, so here you can see the upper esophageal sphincter contracted and how these things will be closed. Okay, okay. So tongue, pharynx, epiglottis will close our larynx and glottis. Okay, all those things will close and food enters only into the esophagus. Okay. And here will be the lower esophageal sphincter. Okay, so this is also considered as gastroesophageal sphincter, which is always closed. Whenever food comes, it opens and food enters into the stomach. Okay, so again this diagram has shown all the phases of deglutition. Okay, that is the oral phase, pharyngeal phase and esophageal phase. Okay. Next, again, one more diagram to show the esophageal phase. The bolus, the combination of chewed food and saliva is swallowed and pushed down past the esophageal sphincter. Okay, here again the sphincter is seen here. Contracting muscles causes the passage and push the bolus down. So constriction behind occurs and relaxation in front occurs. That is the typical property of peristaltic movement. Okay. So relaxation muscle open the passage away and allow the bolus to move down. Okay. Then finally it enters into the stomach. Okay. Now coming on to the some of the applied aspect. Okay, what is reflex esophagitis? Okay, in some person, if the tone of a lower esophageal sphincter is not proper, okay, maybe because of any reason, or if there is an excessive acid secretion in our stomach. Okay, so some amount of acid may enter into the lower part of the esophagus. That is called as reflex esophagitis. That is called as heartburn also. Most of the person will be alcoholic or having in the habit of eating spicy foods, okay, or stress, anxiety, okay, anxious people, they will complain of heartburn. That is because of the reflex esophagitis. In them, the secretion of gastric juice is more, HCl secretion is more, and it may sometimes regurgitate into the lower esophagus, leading into the infection of lower esophagus. That is called as reflex esophagitis. Then achalasia cardia. What is this achalasia cardia? Here again, the lower esophageal sphincter will not open. As I told you, it should open whenever food comes. But here what happens, it's one of the commonest disorder of esophagus. You can go through this in your book and read detail in the internet also and make your notes about this achalasia cardia. So this is the failure to open the lower esophageal sphincter. So what happens? The whatever food and this liquid is there, that will accumulate in esophagus itself. Okay. So bulging of esophagus occur, that may lead to the pain, okay, and vomiting, pain, and finally the food will not enter into the stomach, hence no digestion and absorption. Person may be anemic, malnourished, everything will happen. Okay. So this is called as achalasia cardia. So one more thing, the lower esophagus carcinoma also may occur. Carcinoma or malignancy may occur. Then how do you identify achalasia cardia or lower esophageal malignancy? In achalasia cardia, what happens? we will have the symptoms more for liquid. Liquid will not go so easily, but whatever solid we will eat, it may forcefully open the sphincter and enter. But first there is an obstruction to the liquid in case of achalasia cardia, and solid food may push to some extent and enter into the stomach. But in case of a carcinoma, the permanent stricture will be formed. There is an obstruction for liquid as well as for solid food in case of esophageal carcinoma. That is the symptom we can differentiate. Okay, it might be a achalasia or probably. Okay, we cannot say 100%. Probably may not be, maybe achalasia or carcinoma. Okay, so what is the treatment? What they will do it? They will try to open it by balloon therapy. Okay, they will try to inject the balloon and try to open the stricture. Okay, in case of achalasia cardia. So you people today go back and read these things in detail. What is achalasia cardia and what are all the treatments available. Then aerophagia. Aerophagia means sometimes the air enters into the esophagus. That is called as aerophagia. We may swallow the air. Okay, that is called as aerophagia. So these are some of the applied aspect of esophagus and upper GI tract movements. So next class I will tell you about the stomach motility of the intestine, small intestine and large intestine. Okay, so today very important thing which you must read today is deglutition reflex or swallowing reflex. That may come to you as a 5 marks question, 3 marks question, okay, or maybe a 10 mark question. So you prepare it very well. The phases of deglutition, practice the diagrams also. Okay, it's easy to show in the laptop or PowerPoint, but in exam you have to draw the diagrams. Okay, so search the books, whichever is the easy and good diagram, you practice it with proper labeling. Okay, so this is about the motility of, today I have covered only the mastication and swallowing or deglutition. Next class we will go to the motility of stomach. Okay, if possible read and attend the classes, that will be helpful for you. Okay, anything? So stay safe, don't go out. Okay, till we will announce when your classes will be starting. Be happy in your home. This is the opportunity you got to be in home with your parents. Okay, and anyway you are losing your offline classes, but whatever is there we have to enjoy in the life, isn't it? We should not go on repenting that we don't have offline classes, we are not understanding online. Don't waste, don't be panic about this. Whatever situation is there, make best out of it. Okay, utilize your time, think that this is the opportunity I got to stay in home with my parents. Okay, and utilize the time and read well. Okay, anything you want to ask? Hmm? Anything you want to ask? Yes? Any problem you are facing? No? Anyone who is not well in this whole batch, you know? Suffered from fever, any symptom or COVID positive, anybody, you know? Or suffered and recovered? Yes? No response. So don't want to talk other than subject. Okay, anyway. Thank you. Read and come for the next class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.